Hey there, grade 8 learners across the Philippines, and welcome to this week's Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to be your guide today. We're going to be stepping into what I like to call a literary time machine, taking this massive investigative journey into Afro-Asian literature. Today, we aren't just looking at words on a page. No, we are stepping straight into the past.
So, here's the big reflection question for our module right off the bat. How does literature help readers understand history? I want you to really think of literature as that time machine I just mentioned. It takes those dry dates and facts from your textbook and, well, it makes them personal. It makes them vivid and deeply human. And we're going to see exactly how authors pull this off.
Now, for those of you keeping track of your modules at home, don't worry. This explainer directly supports your official DPED Matatug K-10 curriculum goals for Quarter 1, Week 3. So we are covering the exact learning competencies you need right now to totally crush it in your English class.
Okay, let's dive right in. Here's our roadmap for today. We'll be exploring Afro-Asian literature, unlocking historical context, understanding Deixis and storytelling, connecting literature to society, and finally, we'll go over your weekly learning challenges.
All right, kicking things off with Section 1, Afro-Asian Literature, exploring the texts. For this lesson, you're not just a student anymore. No, you are a literary detective actively hunting for cultural clues hidden right there in the text. I really want to emphasize this core philosophy. Great literature doesn't just tell stories. It preserves history, culture, and the lived experience of real people. When we read Afro-Asian stories, we are uncovering the very real, beating heart of a society at a very specific moment in time. It's pretty amazing. Moving right along to Section 2, Historical Context, Unlocking the Past. Let's see how this builds into our very first major analytical tool.
So, what exactly is historical context anyway? Basically, it refers to all those details surrounding an occurrence that give meaning to memories, stories, and characters. Think of a short story like a giant jigsaw puzzle. Without the historical context, that puzzle is missing its most important edge pieces. The picture just isn't going to make sense. Context is literally everything.
If you have your notebooks handy, this is a really great time to jot this down. Writers can be kind of sneaky, right? They don't just hand you a history lesson. Instead, they weave it in using 4 specific clues. They use flashbacks to show past events, personification to bring abstract cultural ideas to life, stereotyping to reveal the societal biases of the time, and local color, the specific sights, sounds, and customs of a region to really ground you in their reality.
Let's actually look at our first case study from your reading this week. It's called Spring Silkworms by the Chinese author Mao Dun, and it was written way back in 1933. This is an absolutely crucial piece of Asian literature, mostly because it serves as a direct, artistic response to real-world conflict.
Now, what's super fascinating here is how Mao Dun used fiction almost like a weapon. He didn't just sit down and write a nice little story about bugs. No way. Spring Silkworms is a direct critique of the 1932 Japanese attack on Shanghai. As we read it, we can see exactly how he weaves in attacks on Chinese feudal thinking and critiques the imperialism happening right outside his own window. By looking for that historical context, a seemingly simple story suddenly becomes this incredibly powerful historical document.
All right, transitioning into the linguistic part of our lesson with Section 3, Deixis in Storytelling, Time and Place. Now hold on, I know Deixis sounds like this big, intimidating grammar word, but I promise you it's actually a very simple and honestly a pretty cool concept.
So, Deixis refers to the words or phrases that describe and reveal the sequential order of events and the location of the story. Simply put, dictic words are literal signposts. They're like the GPS coordinates a narrator uses to guide us through time and space just to make sure we never get lost in the narrative.
Deixis basically breaks down into 2 main types to show this difference. Time Deixis tells us when we are, using words like now, then, today, or yesterday. Place Deixis, on the other hand, tells us where we are, using words like here, there, this place, or that place. It's exactly how the imaginary narrator points to things within the world of the story.
For your first activity this week, you're going to be using this exact timeline graphic organizer. I want you to try and visualize using those time deixis words, the thens and todays, to accurately trace the sequence of events while reading your stories. Those little words, they are the absolute key to unlocking the timeline.
You'll actually get to practice this heavily with your second story, an excerpt from Chinua Achebe's absolute masterpiece, Things Fall Apart.
Achebe is a total genius at using dictic clues right alongside local color to fully immerse us in the Igbo society of Nigeria. He doesn't just tell us we're in a different place, he literally points us there. He shows us the sharing of the kola nut, the trading of cowries for currency, and how titles and yams serve as these huge status symbols. That, my friends, is local color and Deixis working beautifully together.
Okay, let's shift our focus outward for Section 4, Literature and Society, Connecting to Now. We really need to answer a big question here. Why does a grade 8 student in the Philippines need to read a Chinese story from 1933 or a Nigerian story from the 1950s? Like, how do these old stories apply to our modern lives today?
Well, the crucial point is this. Reading Afro-Asian literature builds the profound empathy we actually need to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, in our world today. These stories highlight universal human struggles for justice, for peaceful and inclusive societies, and accountable institutions. When we truly understand the historical struggles of others through their literature, we become much better global citizens, totally ready to build a better future.
And that brings us right to Section 5, Learning Challenges, your Week 3 assessments. Let's take a look at exactly what's expected of you to conquer this week's module. So you have two main writing tasks this week. First up, you'll write a 500-word reflection paper analyzing exactly how the narrator uses Deixis, remember, those time and place signposts, in Things Fall Apart. Then, putting on your global citizen hat, you're going to write a 500 to 700-word essay connecting the themes of both of these Afro-Asian stories to the Sustainable Development Goals we just talked about.
Let's take a really quick look at the grading rubric for your essay. I want every single one of you aiming for that proficient tier. To get those top 8 to 10 points per category, you've got to show a thorough understanding of the content, pull strong, specific examples right out of the text, organize your essay with a super clear introduction, body, and conclusion, use precise language, and, of course, bring your own original creative insights to the table. You've got the tools, now it's time to show off what you know. Before we completely wrap up, I do want to briefly mention your optional advanced reading. Next week, we're actually switching gears from prose over to poetry. To get a head start, I highly recommend looking into these core questions, like what makes a poem a poem? Brush up on elements like imagery and stanzas, and see if you can research 3 notable Afro-Asian poets. Trust me, it will make next week's lesson an absolute breeze.
To conclude our explainer today, I want to leave you with a bit of a challenge. We started out by asking how literature helps us understand history. So now I'm asking you, as you read Spring Silkworms and Things Fall Apart this week, how will the stories you read preserve history, culture, and the lived experience of real people? Take these new time machine skills into every single book you open from now on. Happy reading, Grade 8 detectives, and I will see you in the next lesson.